Hey, Expanded Universe fans! Before we start our show, we just wanted to thank you and our sponsors for your support during these wacky times we live in. And also be sure to give us a rating and review, preferably the 5-star kind, you know? And if you haven't listened to all of our Cinema Craptacular shows, give them a listen. They're all on our podcast channel. There's B-Sides, Terror Tunnel, Real Debates, Cinema Craptaculus, and of course, the Expanded Universe, which is about to start now. Geek out! Hello, and thank you for joining us for this episode of Cinema Craptaculus Presents The Expanded Universe with your hosts, John H.H. Ford, Mario Doc Diaz, and s'more. From movies to TV series to toys to comics to pop culture to streaming services, this show is your safe space for all things geeky and where you can get your geek on. This is John H.H., and with me as always are my geektacular co-hosts.
This is Doc.
And s'more!
Well, guys, depending on when this episode airs, we're going to focus on a little week that happened in April. It was the week of the 18th, and it was actually Tuesday the 19th. It was a very tough week for Netflix. As it released. Yeah. Oof. Yeah, it released its really recent data that week that instead of gaining additional 2 million subscribers at the end of Q1 as was forecast, it lost, 200,000. And it actually, I think the numbers are actually more than that when you factor in having to pull the Russian subscribers. I think that was like 600 to 700, but 200,000. And then they predicted that they would lose an additional 2 million in the second quarter. And this sent the stock tumbling. I think it was like 35% on Wednesday, and I think it closed 37% down. And it was like overall, it's 62% overall. It lost over $50 billion in market cap, and one of the largest shareholders, Bill Ackerman's group, the Pershing Square Capital, they had just bought something like 3.5 million shares in January. And he was going on praising Reed Hastings and Netflix offering. Well, that day he dumped all their stock. And I think they lost something like $400 million on their transaction in that investment. So, Reed Hastings comes out and he offers up a variety of reasons as to the industry leader's precipitous financial freefall, which we'll discuss today. And the question has to be asked, what is going on with streaming and where are things going? And if the biggest streamer of them all has this type of problem, what does it mean for the others? So we're going to get into this, but what are your thoughts on Netflix and its really bad week this past month?
Talk about a bad day. Talk about a bad week. I mean, predicted to lose $2 billion in quarter two. Look, I understand their new policy, part of which is they want to get rid of password sharing because they feel like they lose money when people share their streaming accounts. I get that. But that can't be the only reason for this ridiculous backlash of a drop that they're experiencing, or can it?
It's not. Yeah, it's not. The streaming wars have definitely gotten interesting. I know leading up to the quote-unquote streaming wars, everyone was had their eyes on Netflix, what was going to happen, which other streaming service was going to topple them. But when all the other streaming services launched little by little, it was kind of like a little boring. It's status quo. Netflix was on top. They stayed on top. People thought Disney would topple them. And I think Disney moved into the second position. A couple years later, like all of a sudden this happens. So like out of nowhere, they make that big announcement. They lost a bunch of subscribers. At the same time, it's kind of, we've talked about this before, or like how is a streaming service expecting to keep all these subscribers or keep gaining subscribers and not lose any?
Well, I think we've all been marveling just in the last 10 years since the Netflix, it been 10 years since they switched from their disastrous Quickster DVD separate business unit into the streaming to kind of just becoming a streamer. And then people have been slowly, getting into it.
I think it was 11 years, but yeah, it's about 10 years.
Yeah. So, they launched House of Cards was sort of the big flagship show, followed by Orange is the New Black and so on. And then Stranger Things came along and they really kicked it into gear. The Crown was a critic's favorite and an awards winner. And so they were spending so much money and everybody is marveling like, okay, I get it. They're really trying to ramp up their content. But, I think they said just this year they're going to spend $18 billion on their content. And of course, that seems like a lot, but it is sort of part of their investment strategy in their library. And, even though their revenue is far less than that, they've been sort of doing what like some of those old startups did back in the dot-com days, sort of spending the investors' money as it comes in, wink, wink, saying this is all going to pay off down the road. But even if you've got the patience of Job as an investor, this drop in their forecasting is not good.
Well, I think they are put in a position where they have to spend the money to either create or acquire new content because you have different companies pulling their content from Netflix. Disney pulled all their Marvel stuff from Netflix. I believe NBC pulled a lot of their content to service their Peacock streaming. And Netflix is in a position where, okay, a lot of our marquees are gone. We have to create new marquees. Hence, a lot of the original programming movies that Netflix has created, a few of which have been hugely successful. I think Ryan Reynolds comes to mind, the latest film he did. Basically, this generation's Back to the Future.
The Adam Project.
The Adam Project, which has done well. The Rock, Ryan Reynolds, and Gal Gadot teamed up to do another film that is pretty successful, Red Notice. So they're forced to do stuff like that, which in the long run could be a good thing because they get to keep their content indefinitely because they created it. But in the short term, they have to stop the bleeding.
Yeah, I think leading up to the streaming wars, they were kind of bracing themselves. That's why they were investing so much money in new content, because they knew that when other streaming services were up and running, that they were going to pull all their movies. And you go on Netflix now and you look for movies, and once in a while you're like, oh yeah, I remember that movie, I'll watch it. But they're not movies that you go to and you're like, wow, that's cool, I want to see that movie. And so like Sean was mentioning, a lot of these movies like The Adam Project and Red Notice, for me personally, I still think they're streaming quality. Like I go and I'm like, yeah, that was fun to watch, but if they were to come out in theaters, I wouldn't be like, hey, I'm going to go see it in the theater. In regards to TV shows, I think that's where Netflix has focused on more now. I go to Netflix more just to watch their original series.
We've talked about this, and of course, Cinema Craptaculous, we do review a lot of Netflix movies. We did The Adam Project, and I agree with you. I think there is a weird sort of drop down in quality with these movies. And look, all of the streaming services have agreed to release total viewing hours for the week. But what they don't, and correct me if I'm wrong, they don't get into the metadata of how long did someone sit through Red Notice with Gal Gadot and Dwayne Johnson and Ryan Reynolds. What is sort of the this kind of blows, I'm turning it off, and repeats. Like, we don't know that information, and I think that we were tolerant of a lot of sort of lesser quality because of the pandemic, and we're all drinking, and it's like, well, this isn't bad. But you're right, Doc. A lot of these films would have probably bombed in the cinemas, but that's a whole separate discussion, and we've kind of gone into it. But what do you think is really at the root of the big fall because of the subscriber losses? Because Hastings trying to spin it on, yes, there's competition from others, but he's really trying to say, look, we're losing a lot of revenue because everything from supply chain issues to the password sharing. People are coming out of the pandemic with things to do. They're traveling. They're getting out, going to bars. But I think there's a lot of people like you who go to Netflix and, they're not going to just rewatch Orange is the New Black from the beginning. The people that go back there to watch series, a lot of the comfort stuff is they want to see The Office. They want to see Friends. And to S'more's point, that's all moved. So is there bullshit, or do you think they're being transparent in terms of the reasons?
You know what? I think it's a confluence of different things. Probably the biggest indicator, and again, I don't know the actual truth because not a lot of information is released, but I think a lot of people are already on the cusp with Netflix. And when they announced that, no password sharing and we're going to have commercials, people realize, well, you know what? I have options. A lot of the stuff that I used to watch on Netflix is gone anyway. The original movies are meh. I'm just going to drop it. I can save myself $14.99 and I can upgrade my Hulu. I can upgrade my Disney Plus. I can go to HBO Max, watch stuff like The Batman that I can't see on Netflix. I don't really need Netflix.
Yeah.
Oh, you say that now. Wait till Stranger Things pops up.
I mean, really?
Sean's not really a fan of Stranger Things.
No, I'm not. After season 2, I was kind of done. First of all, they look like adults. And they're supposed to be teenagers. And there's only so many of the upside down creatures that we can see that I'm excited about.
A lot of their big shows are sunsetting. They're kind of at they've announced end dates, the last seasons. They've been doing pretty well with their minis. They had a real big hit last year with the Queen's Gambit. They tried to replicate it a bit this year with Inventing Anna, which did pretty well. I just actually finished watching it, funny enough. But I think you're right. I don't think that they're in a position to really, except for if they can get some marquee names in their movies still, that gives them that little bump. But I don't know if that sustains them without hit series.
It doesn't. It doesn't give you the repeat viewing because you watch a movie, you move on, as opposed to a series. You binge the series, you go to the next season, you go to the next series that's like the series that you watched. If it's just movies, like, okay, this movie looks interesting, I'll watch for 2 hours, and I'm going to jump to Paramount Plus and watch Star Trek Picard for 7 hours.
Doc, pivot over to some of the other streamers and talk about what the competitors are doing and what's working or not working for them.
Well, something the other streamers are doing, well, for one thing, they have like the big movies. So that's the advantage they have over Netflix, where, for example, HBO Max, they have that whole rule where 45 days after a movie is released in theaters, you can see it on HBO Max. So my movie going, has changed. And this was like pre-pandemic where I have to like pick and choose what movies I go see in the theater. So now knowing that some of those movies are going to be available for streaming, I can just totally wait and watch them there because there are some movies or a lot of movies that I just don't need to pay to see them in theaters. Something else streaming services are doing, they're offering different tiers, different subscriptions. And I think, Netflix does do this. Something that a lot of other streaming services do is they have a tier where you pay less and it's ad supported. So you'll have the lowest tier, which is ad supported. The second one, they have one that is free with ads. Then the second one, you pay a little bit more. And then after the third one is like the premium where there's no ads at all. So I know that Netflix is doing this. They announced that a couple of days after. So that's something that Netflix has noticed and they're looking into in regards to them getting better movies and better titles. That's a tough one because like we just mentioned, a lot of studios have pulled their bigger movies. And once in a while you see some gems in there, but that's very, very rare.
Well, let me throw some stats at you real quick regarding some of these other streamers. And, it's interesting you did mention Netflix is going to experiment with the ad-supported content because they dropped that the next day as, oh, no, we're going to tier our pricing. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, how's that going to bring in new subscribers if you're basically going to say people can pay less to get ads? Because the appeal of streaming was always, it's like I can get rid of cable and TV because I can watch stuff and I don't have to deal with fucking ads. Never mind that Hulu and Disney have offered it.
I think basically what it is, people are looking at all those streaming services and, say if you have like 5-6 streaming services, that's a lot of money. So you have to kind of pick and choose which ones you want. You eliminate, ones that you don't use very often. And if Netflix has a lower tier where you pay like $5, it's ad supported, people might be like, I'll pay the $5. It's not the $14 or the $15. So they're like, I can do $5.
Well, they all had a rough week that week. Warner Brothers Discovery lost. This is just the companies. They lost the week that Netflix shat the bed. Warner Brothers, their stock went down 70%. Disney lost 9%. Lionsgate 8%. AMC Network 7%. And Comcast, which owns NBC Universal, was down 5%. But I think that if you look at their stats, Peacock, they had 24 million subscribers by the end of 2021. And $5 billion of content budget, which is like 1/5 of Netflix. So they're kind of chugging along, but they're still small potatoes. But it doesn't matter because Comcast, has vast resources. Disney had almost 130 million subscribers by the end of 2021. It gained over 11 at the end of that quarter. But if you notice, I think it was last year they were shutting down their Disney channels. So they really have been siphoning, and we noticed this. We've talked about this. Everything is going to Disney Plus. They're just putting that eggs in that basket.
They are. I think another angle that we might want to take a look at is that the world is opening up.
Yeah.
As far as the pandemic goes, people have options again. They're going out to dinner. They're going out to the theaters. They're going out to hang out with friends, and they're not as at home as much streaming constantly. And I'm sure some people looking to save money are thinking, you know what? I don't need 6, 7, 8 different streaming. I can survive with 5 or 4.
Yeah, people are kind of starved from like interacting
But here's something interesting. So one strategy Netflix had said, okay, we're going to combat this password sharing because they're going to implement a new feature that it wouldn't just freeze accounts of offenders that have like family members on the other side of the country. It would basically give them a couple of warnings. And then these are for like the extreme offenders. Not like if you're sharing your password with, your sister, she goes off to college, that you're going to get this big warning. These are the people that obviously have 15 different people outside the home. But they're going to basically give you an extra. They're going to say, hey, you could pay extra to have those family members. So it's sort of like, we're going to let you know. And I'm like, well, how are you going to enforce any of this? Because if your goal is to keep people, but you get mad because they're sharing passwords, what's your recourse? To just freeze their account? People will be like, fine, fuck you. Then I'll just cancel.
Yeah, I know there's been a lot of focus on password sharing. And I don't know if Netflix might be focusing on that, like giving that as the reason why. It might be other online sites that are just like, oh, they latched onto that thinking that that's what Netflix is thinking. But other things that we've mentioned are the cause of this. They've raised prices, I don't know how many times over the last 5 years. So that kind of like pisses people off. Canceling series, the series that we've been watching, like for example, Glow, that's a show that we were like really into and really waiting to see that third season. And then all of a sudden they cancel that. So that's kind of disappointing.
Right.
There's also the competition, so many other streaming services, Disney Plus, HBO Max, Paramount, Hulu, Amazon Prime, Apple TV Plus, and Peacock. And then something Sean was mentioning, things are opening up after the pandemic. People are starving to like socialize and get out with people, just go to restaurants, go to bars, just go see movies in theaters. So people are realizing they're not really needing those extra streaming services, or they just sit at home. And then after a few months, they're like, I'm not watching this. Why am I going to pay for this? And then something Ford mentioned earlier about, them pulling out of Russia. I guess Ford was saying that those numbers aren't included in the loss. That's a pretty huge loss.
That is. Something else too, I wonder if anyone's brought this up, or maybe I missed this. Yeah, we don't advocate piracy in any way, shape, or form. But say you have several other devices where you like to watch your Netflix on, like my iPad. I like to watch a lot of shows on the iPad. Does that mean that I can't use my password on my iPad because it's considered quote unquote password sharing?
No,
Have they accounted
it's the
for that?
IP address on your internet. So if you're at home, it doesn't matter what device. But if you are outside and you're using Wi-Fi at a coffee shop or your data, then I don't know. That might be considered,
Yeah.
I
don't know how they.
If it's two, they can tell if it's playing on two different. Because you're obviously not going to watch the same thing, right? Your friend could be at school watching something on their phone, and you're at home watching. They would tell that that's two different viewings, right?
Yeah, but they already do have the second screen option, where like some accounts you can only watch content on one account, but then say somebody in the other room could log in, and that's like a second screen. So they already offer that. But yeah, I don't know how they would keep track of, like, say, well, a friend of ours was saying that he commutes to work, and so he'll take his laptop or his phone. And I don't know how they keep track.
He watches while he's driving?
No, he'll be like
skillful.
Public transit. He'll be like on a bus or a train, whatever, something like that. But yeah, I don't know how they police that or how they keep an eye on that. And I don't know if that counts as, or if that would be like a red flag, like, hey, what's going on? Somebody else is using this.
Hey there, we'll be right back. And now back to the show. Overall, streaming services are up over 2.5 million subscriptions from a year ago. So it's not a winner-take-all game. There's still a lot of food on the table, but I think it's a little unfair in the sense that two of the players, Amazon and Apple, they're just best positioned because they view their streaming services as like customer retention add-ons. They have more profitable businesses, so it's not as much a profit maker for the entertainment companies like Disney, but definitely Netflix for sure. So it makes it a little unfair because...
But you know what? That's fine in my book because competition fosters, innovation. If we just have one source where we watch all our stuff, then we're not getting much of a variety. The very fact that we have competition forces the other guys, okay, you need to compete, do better. Netflix.
Well, competition is one thing, but I think just if one company can just throw money at the wall, Amazon or Apple, then and look, then Netflix can say that's unfair. But to your point, it's like, well, that's business. But I think it is a little unfair because these companies, Amazon had no business getting into, making original content, but they did, and then they had Maisel, Jack Ryan. They've had some other, films that have been nominated, but they're still
Ford. Maisel, come on now, John. Maisel.
Oh, I'm not saying that they're not good, but I'm just saying that if I were at some of these other companies, I'd feel bad because if you invest in Amazon, You're buying shares in Amazon, and all of that money can just, it's a drop in the bucket, their stream service, I'm sure. But if you're investing in Netflix, just like any entertainment company, they have to provide. They have to do well.
And they should provide and do well, and they should step up their game, and Netflix should give us better quality films and better quality programming. Otherwise, we're going to vote with our dollar and we're going to leave, and that's as it should be. I don't see a problem with that. The problem I see is raising prices constantly because you feel like, oh, we need more revenue to do this, that, and this and that. When I know I have options, I don't want to pay $79 for a streaming service when I can pay $4.99 for something else. And if I can't get what I need, then I won't.
Do you guys think Disney is in a position to suffer a similar fate in the coming years? Because they're putting a lot of, just like Netflix, they're spending a lot of money. They have gotten a lot of subscriptions. But they do have, they're better positioned because of their library, but they're still primarily entertainment. And I don't know how much they're spending in relation to their revenue, but it's got to be a lot.
You know what? They can share a similar fate, but they're better cushioned from the fallout because they're general entertainment companies. Amazon does more than just streaming television or programming.
No, I'm talking about Disney though, because they put a lot of their money.
Disney does more like Amazon than stream entertainment online. They have parks. They have movies. They have constant sources.
Yeah.
That's true.
Park.
That's true. That's true. But they are better braced to take on that hit than, say, Netflix.
And Disney has better IPs. They have Marvel, they have Star Wars. And so I'm going to keep my subscription because I want to continue watching those shows. Those are shows that I want to continue watching. There's some shows on Netflix where I enjoyed them, but if they didn't come back for another season, I might be okay with that.
I would disagree a little bit, only in the sense that Netflix, just like Pandora in their position, they pioneered the technology and the strategy. These other companies came along, saw what Netflix did, and
and John, where's Pandora now? It's still around, but is it bigger than, say, Spotify? Is it bigger than, say,
look at
Apple Music?
Look at Facebook.
Well, Apple Music
before
is
Facebook,
different.
there was MySpace, and there was Friendster.
Yeah,
exactly. Just because they pioneered the technology doesn't mean they're safe from being eliminated. Netflix is Netflix. They do movies, they stream programming. That's it. Disney is a corporation.
They also have a real behind the curtain algorithm team that I don't know if the other competition streamers have. We have to remember that what happened is they just lost subscribers. It's not like they're having technical issues or they had a fallout internally or, shows haven't done well. Just overall, they've just lost to the competitors is how I see it.
I mean, I understand what you're saying. What I'm saying is companies like Disney and Paramount and Amazon are better suited to take the hit and bounce back as opposed to Netflix. If Netflix takes too big of a hit, they're done. What else do they offer besides streaming shows that they buy from other companies?
Yeah. Well, lost in that week of bed shitting was CNN Plus. CNN Plus launched on the 29th of March, and it shut down 3 weeks later. And they knew that they were going to have this Discovery deal, and they launched anyway. So now I'm just like, what were they thinking? Because they're going to have to pay out contracts on Chris Wallace and all other hosts that had hundreds of people could lose their jobs, but a lot of those big above-the-line talent are going to have big payouts.
True, but you know what? They still have enough resources to come back and try again if they really wanted to.
Do they?
As compared to Netflix?
Well,
yeah, sure.
Yes, only because Discovery and Warner as a conglomerate could throw CNN a bone, but I think it's egg in the face on CNN regardless. They're going to pull some of that talent like Chris Wallace, he could fill Chris Cuomo's spot on CNN, but
you can spin bad press.
These are high-profile streaming services. Doc, what are some of the other ones? Are we missing any that are sort of still scrapping?
Other streaming services?
Yeah. Well, you briefly mentioned Paramount Plus.
I think Paramount Plus is doing okay. They have Star Trek, and they're cranking out Star Trek series left and right, which a lot of them are enjoyable. I think Peacock is the one that's struggling the most. They do have that free option, so just lack of content. I go on there. I had subscribed to the second tier So I had some ads, and I had done that because it was around the time of the Super Bowl. I was house sitting at the time, and they didn't have live TV. So I signed up for Peacock, and then after that, I was like, you know what, I'll keep it around because they had The Office there. My niece is a big fan of The Office, and she had been wanting to see the later seasons in the run, which weren't available to stream for the for the free level. Had it for 2 months. I talked to my brother. I was like, hey, is my niece even watching Peacock? And he's like, I'll be honest with you, she hasn't logged on to that. So I immediately canceled it and I switched back to the free version. So instead of Peacock, I'm getting Free Cock. And now when I say that,
excuse me.
Now when I say that, that sounds really, really bad. But
wow.
yeah, I'm getting it for free.
Wow, Doc, put it out there.
Oh, that we just lost our radio show. That's the go-to phrase.
The fans are sending angry letters right now, angry tweets, angry emails.
We do not condone any free sexual anything.
Right. We haven't even talked about like the porn streaming services. How are they doing competing against each other? This is all domestic.
They're great.
This is all Canada.
Well, I don't know.
These stats are all Canada, US. We haven't even talked about international, and I should know a lot more, but I don't. The only thing I know is that I can't get over where I'm at. I can't get HBO Max because HBO doesn't have a carriage deal in the UK until like 2025 or something. But
wait, so you're not watching The Batman?
No, I have not been, and it was up the street from me for weeks, but I didn't see it.
Hey guys, I still have not seen The Batman.
How dare you?
It's available on HBO Max. It's there, but it's just 3 hours.
Just hunker down, man. Hunker down.
Does Netflix need more superhero stuff? Because it seems like I know. They for a while there you could find some of the Warner stuff. You could find some of the Marvel. The Marvel stuff is all completely gone. It's now on Disney Plus.
You can still watch The Flash.
Do you want to see The Flash?
No, I don't.
I wouldn't say they need more superhero stuff. I just think they need bigger names, bigger content, more recognizable IPs. It's not all about superheroes. I know people always say, "Oh, Marvel this, DC this, they're the ones taking over everything." But there's other good movies out there that people are interested to see and will tune into if they're good.
This is a separate topic for one of our shows. Is how I think these series are going to be in trouble soon because they're banking on a lot of these feature film A-listers, like Jennifer Aniston and Reese Witherspoon and Nicole Kidman and Kevin Costner. All these people who were film stars are now in streaming series. But if we're not grooming new, I hate that word. If we're not building up new film stars, eventually, because nobody is really getting that excited about streaming stars. Maybe there'll be a little bit of a pop, the guy from Bridgerton or something. But for the most part, there's still the aura of film stars. Ooh, wow, I can watch them in a streaming series or an HBO series. But we're going to run out of film stars, guys, right?
Well, I mean, that's a conundrum because while we have all these older film stars coming to streaming, no one's really going out to the theater to see more film stars. Thus, you can't create film stars and no one's watching them.
Like I said, we could talk about it. The only one I can even think of is Timothy Chalamet in terms of like a new film star coming up, right?
Also, we have to think about our point of view is like an older generation where we're into these film stars and, all these names, a lot of movies were sold by these celebrities' names. The younger generation, they're coming from a different point of view where they may not need that. They may not be into those big names like we were, the big celebrities, the big movie stars.
So, Doc, you're saying that we're being slowly replaced by Gen Z?
Yeah, we all die. We're all gonna die.
One thing that Reed Hastings did talk about in the the mud that was flying at him from everybody in the investment world is how they do want to explore video gaming in their Netflix platform. And I'm surprised that didn't come up more in his deflection / contrition about their subscriber fall. But, that is a whole new world that no one really is competing as far as I'm aware of. I know that in the world of Apple and apps, you can play games, but through the streaming services, it just seems like a no-brainer that if you've got an Xbox Netflix account, if you want to pull up a game and be able to watch it through streaming or play it for a week, as a rental, can you do that, or am I an idiot? Am I an old man? Can you do that?
No, I was going to say there's already a lot of companies that are doing that. You sign up for a subscription. I know Amazon had been focusing on that. I'm not a gamer, so I really don't know which ones are up and running. But years back, Stadia came out. It failed. I think it was ahead of its time. People didn't have the connection speeds for it. But that's out there. People do sign up for subscriptions, and then you can play multiple games online.
They do. And honestly, if you have your Xbox or your Wii or your PlayStation 5s, you already have that network in of itself. You don't need to go to a streaming channel to do that. Nor are they interested in doing that.
Well, I think there's a lot of companies that are interested in that piece of the pie, because gaming is huge.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of money to be made there. So you see a lot of these other companies like Amazon releasing their controllers. They have a Amazon specific controller, and other companies have done that as well.
I think Netflix, is going to go through a lot. It's going through a lot of soul searching. I'm hoping that there's not going to be a lot of pink slips coming out. We all know people. There's a lot of people we know connected to it through whether they're a client, whether they're like an ad sales client, or they're an agent or providing content, working on a show or working there. We don't want to see anybody lose their jobs. But from what I understand, they were spending money like sailors for a while. I mean, that flagship Office and the shows and the lavish, and they can
Ford,
cut
what do you have against sailors?
Right. Hey, sailors keep the whole world afloat.
Give me a seaman on that ship.
I still like a lot of Netflix's series. I've really not been overly disappointed, and we forget that they got Squid Game. They were the ones really pulling the stuff from overseas.
Yeah.
I just think there's just the other competition, and people are tightening their budgets. The inflation is really making people examine, even and in getting off the couch. But when you look at if you got 5 subscriptions, and the whole point of having 5 is I cut the cord because it was so much cheaper. But now I'm like, it's almost a wash. You're going to decide.
Well, you know what? It's funny you should mention that, because Doc said something that was brilliant earlier. Not in this podcast, but before. People are complaining that, we have all these subscription services and all this content. It's just as bad as cable. When the reality is, people got exactly what they wanted. They wanted a la carte entertainment. A la carte entertainment is going to cost you. If you don't want to pay that much money, then you're going to have to re-examine what you really want. Because we got what we wanted. Unfortunately, it all adds up.
You pretty much just have to pick and choose what you want. No one's forcing you to subscribe to every service that comes out. And I'm totally cool with it. It's like I subscribe to 3 or 4 streaming services and I pass on the rest. So it's up to me. It's up to the consumer.
And you have to be comfortable with that choice. You have to be comfortable with it.
And I still think it's a great deal. I mean, when you think about all you get, I think we're very spoiled. And I think we get grumpy when we see a movie and then 2 months later we go to actually watch it. Damn it, it's not on there anymore. But you know what? There are so many other, there is a lot. If you want to watch old movies, there's a lot. I think Netflix gets a little too excited with throwing all their ducats at, Dwayne Johnson and Ryan Reynolds, because
ducats.
I think that I think you're going to burn out a bit on those guys on Netflix.
Ford's a little gangster there. Ducats.
Ducats.
Throw out those ducats, y'all.
Ducats.
Real quick, something Ford mentioned about pink slips. That's something else that happened right after their announcement of losing all the subscribers. I think a friend of ours sent us a link saying that they got rid of their animation department already. I think some of the projects that were already in the pipeline, we'll get to see those, but moving forward, Netflix was releasing a lot of animated content.
So Doc, no Masters of the Universe Revelation?
I don't know. I don't know if that was already in the work. I don't know how far along, they'd gotten with that, but I would love to see another season.
And by the way, let me jump on my quick soapbox. Y'all need to stop hating on Masters of the Universe Revelation. It's a good show. These grumpy old fanboys who used to collect the He-Man action figures back in the day saying that, it's not like the He-Man action figures. Shut up and watch the show. It's good. That's it. That's
our message. Grab your old He-Man action figures, sit on the couch, grab a 6-pack of Coke and a pizza, and don't try to relive the old days.
Well, here's the thing. It's Sean was the biggest Masters of the Universe fan back in the day. He had all the figures. I think he said he was missing one figure, but he had all of them, and he loves it. And I love the series too. And I've gotten together with friends as a group, and we watch it, and we hope that there's another season. But
that's been a problem with Netflix, is they'll just kill a show because the people are not watching all the episodes or didn't finish, and so you won't. For the people who are watching it, they won't get a satisfactory ending. But I'm like, that's been going on at the networks forever, so I don't know why that's considered a big gripe. It's always been that way. Show doesn't do well, we're so used to getting wrap-ups and finales that resolve, but we are spoiled. That's
something else that did come up, that Netflix, it seems like they were focusing on trying to get new subscribers, and they weren't really focusing on subscribers they already had. So, for example, if you're watching a series and 2 seasons come out, then you're like, oh yeah, I can't wait for that 3rd season. And then Netflix cancels it because they want to focus on the shiny new toy, which is a new series. So they'll greenlight that.
Yeah, one example that comes to mind is Cowboy Bebop. It's like, I know a lot of people initially complained that, it's weird. It's not like the cartoon. But watching that, I didn't think it was that bad. And I still think it probably needed a chance to grow. They delivered what people wanted.
In the future, we're going to probably do an episode where we're going to say, hey guys, this is stuff that you're not watching, you should, and maybe defend shows that maybe didn't get a second or third season, and are they worth watching anyway? That's another topic, but
that'll be fun.
I'd like to see Netflix. I just want to end by saying I was saddened by the news. I love the idea of a juggernaut. I don't think Netflix is some big evil conglomerate that is taking over. To S'more's earlier point, there is still a lot of competition. I was just kind of hoping the ride would keep going, but
well, it's not over.
I wouldn't.
Yeah, it's not over.
Well, a lot can happen by the time this episode airs, as we discussed.
I don't think Netflix is going to go away. I don't. I think they're going to change their model. They are changing their model, and they're going to adapt. Most successful companies do. They'll adapt.
Yeah.
That'll be fine.
Yeah, one thing they can do to adapt, and I think they've already experimented with this. Ford was asking the question earlier, like what they can do to stay relevant, is to switch from the model where they just drop all the episodes at the same time, and like other streaming services, release them weekly. You hold on to subscribers that way. For example, with Disney Plus, I'm watching Moon Knight right now, and then as soon as that's over, I'm going to hop on to Obi-Wan. So Netflix isn't gone. They're making changes. I'm really looking forward to what they come up with, and looking forward to newer content that they release. I'm
excited for Stranger Things season 4. I don't care. They all look 30, but it's basically the sweat hogs at that point.
I am not. I'm looking forward to Ozark.
Oh, right. Ozark.
And the depression that it will bring inevitably.
Right.
And the drinking.
Oh, the drinking.
Thank you to all our listeners, both openly geeky and closeted geeky, for joining us on this expanded universe journey. This has been Mario, aka Doc, and with me as always are my geek-tacular co-hosts,
John H.H.
and S'more. And remember that this is your safe space to talk about all things geeky, and where you can get your geek on.
Geek out!
Thank you for geeking out with us on the Expanded Universe. Hey, if there is a geeky or pop culture topic you would like us to dive into on our show, we'd love to hear from you. Or if you just want to comment, agree, or disagree, let us know by following us on Twitter and Instagram. Our handle is @Craptaculous. Cinema Craptaculous is also on Facebook. Our universe is definitely expansive, as each week it's a brand new Cinema Craptaculous show. We've got B-Sides with Adam, Dave, and Tara, Terror Tunnel with Stephanie and her horror co-hosts, the Expanded Universe with the geeks, John H.H., Doc, and S'more, Real Debates with JDH, Dave, and some surprise guests. And of course, our flagship Cinema Craptaculous with Dave, Stephanie, and John. And you can find more content at cinemacraptaculous.com.